Hi guys, it's me Chazza HD and welcome to this 2022 Austrian Grand Prix preview for, of course, the return to the Red Bull ring for the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. Hopefully you guys are doing well after what was a crazy weekend at Silverstone. I have to say, looking back, it feels like at Silverstone we had about 4 or 5 races worth of entertainment, headlines, stories, all of that stuff. It was what a mental weekend it was at Silverstone. Hopefully, here in Austria, it will be maybe not as crazy, because I think that's a bit unrealistic to expect that, but it will provide us with, some great entertainment once again, and I don't see a reason why it won't be able to provide us with entertainment. In the past, we have had some classic races around here, in 2020 and 2019 especially. Those two Grand Prix were absolutely brilliant. And yeah, I think definitely we've got a good chance of an exciting weekend, and also looks to be that we might have some rain on Sunday. Maybe not like a full wet race, but at least a damp Grand Prix at certain stages of the race. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that, but it should be a good weekend. Obviously, we've got the sprint race this weekend. Obviously, you guys know that I don't like the sprint, but it will probably throw up the order slightly during the weekend. So, yeah, should be a good weekend of racing. And of course, in tonight's preview, I'm going to get into all of the teams, obviously how they did at Silverstone, and look at how I think they'll do here in Austria. Also, we'll look at the track map for anyone, who's never seen a Grand Prix here in Austria, just to go over what the track is like and who it should suit, what type of cars it should suit, and who it, won't suit. Obviously, we'll get into stats through the night, championship standings, all of that before we come to the end. So make sure to buckle up for the stream, and I hope that all of you watching are having a good day. No matter what time it is in your part of the world, hopefully you're having as best a time as you can be having at the moment. And yeah, hopefully with me this weekend, you will be, whether it's be watching along or just catching up on what's going on at the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend with myself. And yeah, I'm looking forward a lot to this Grand Prix. But let's first, before we get into the teams, get into the track itself. Now, it's a pretty simple circuit, as you can see here on your screen. So we'll go through the lap. So as we know, you exit turn 10, a pretty fast right-hander onto the pit straight, and then you come down into, or up, rather, to turn 1, which is, I believe, the Niki Lauda curve. It is its official name, I believe it is. A medium speed corner. You do have to take a good wide entry to make sure you can maximize the corner itself, and there are some nasty sausage curbs on the exit that can definitely break your car if you run a bit too wide, which we have seen here in the past. And then you enter the second DRS activation zone between turn 1 and turn 3. Turn 2 is just a kink. The entry to turn 3 though, and the braking zone is very, very bumpy. So teams like Mercedes, for example, who have had trouble, with bouncing or bumpy tracks, that might not be a great section of the track for them. But then you go into a very slow right-hand turn 3, definitely overtaking possible into that corner, and then the exit of that corner, very important as you go onto then the third DRS activation point down to turn 4. Again, another great place to make an overtake work. And then you come into a series for the final, or the end of the middle sector and the final sector, into a series of fast corners. Turn 5, not turn 5, is flat out. And then into turn 6, that's not a flat out turn 6, but a pretty quick turn 6. And then into turn 7 begins the final sector, and turn 7 is very fast. Turn 8 is flat out, and then a short little run to turn 9 and turn 10, the two final corners, which are two very quick right-hand corners, and then you bring yourself back onto the pit straight. It is, I believe, the shortest lap of the year is the Red Bull ring. Only 10 corners in or at this track. And at the end of the day, this track, it suits cars that have obviously good straight line speed, but also have good high speed corner performance, such as Mercedes, who we've seen this season, and we saw last weekend at Silverstone, their speed in the high speed corners was very, very good. So yeah, if you've got good straight line speed and or good performance in the high speed corners, then you will do at least decently well here in Austria. But if you're a team that is not so great in those aspects, then this is going to be a pretty poor weekend. But what we do tend to get here in Austria is, because of how short the lap is, what we do tend to get is, even if you are lacking pace, you can actually still end up a lot closer to cars ahead because of the closer gap that it is naturally between all of the cars. So it should be a good, close weekend. And I think definitely teams like, Red Bull, AlphaTauri, they'll especially do well at this track this weekend. Mercedes, to a certain extent, I think will as well. Not maybe as much as they were at Silverstone, doing very well around there. But I think they'll definitely do well here. I think the track mostly suits them, but like I said, doesn't suit them as well as I think Silverstone does. Ferrari to a certain extent, but not massively. One team, though, that is going to struggle, that obviously we'll get into later, is McLaren. This is probably the worst track for McLaren to go to. Slow speed corners for the first half of the lap, and then just high speed straights. Very, very bad for McLaren, who I think will struggle quite a bit this weekend. But let's get into, before we head into the teams, let's get into the championship standings. So, in the driver's standings, Max Verstappen is still comfortably in the lead on 181 points. Sergio Perez is second still. Charles Leclerc somehow still in third, despite how well he did in that race on Sunday. I still can't believe that he ended up finishing fourth, despite driving so well with a broken front wing. It was just incredible what happened there for Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz finished, obviously, on the top step of the podium at Silverstone, and he is now up to fourth in the Drivers' Championship and only 11 points behind Charles Leclerc. Shows you how bad Leclerc's results have been in the last 5 races or so. George Russell is down to 5th. Lewis Hamilton is now 6th and closing the gap to the cars ahead. And then you've got Lando Norris 7th, Bottas 8th, Ocon 9th, and Fernando Alonso in 10th place. And then in the constructor standings, Red Bull, despite being outscored by Ferrari by a few points, have still got a pretty comfortable lead of 63 points in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes are third, not too far away from Ferrari, but they were outscored, I think, by a point. No, they were outscored by more than that at Silverstone. I think it was like 10 or 12 points. So, yeah, didn't do a great job of, closing the gap to Ferrari in terms of last Grand Prix result, but they're still not that far away, only 60 points, and we've seen with all the points Ferrari have given up in the last month or so that definitely Mercedes can catch Ferrari. McLaren are fourth, but the gap is closing to the cars, or not the cars, the teams behind them. Alpine are fifth and now only 6 points behind McLaren. Alfa Romeo are sixth, AlphaTauri 7th. Haas are back up to 8th place on 20 points, only 7 behind AlphaTauri. Aston Martin are 9th on 18 points, and Williams is still last on 3 points. So those are your championship standings going into this weekend's Austrian Grand Prix. And we'll now get into the teams, and we'll start, of course, with Red Bull Racing, their home Grand Prix. And let's be honest, even though the last Grand Prix at Silverstone was pretty poor for them, considering how good they've been this season and how and how what am I trying to say? How good they've been this season and how quick they have been, they are still in a very good position at the moment. Ferrari, obviously, as we'll get onto in a moment, just did not capitalise really at all on Red Bull's problems. Red Bull had a pretty bad race looking back at Silverstone, with Max Verstappen Jesus Christ, I can't even speak English tonight. Having the damaged floor that he did have, and Sergio Perez having to drop to the back after a few laps because of a severely broken front wing. Yeah, Red Bull didn't really lose out that badly in last weekend's Grand Prix at Silverstone. And yeah, coming to this weekend's race, they are going to have, without a doubt, the best car. This track suits their car the best out of any team. They've got the best straight line speed. Max Verstappen is the best driver out of anyone at this track. So even if it's a bit closer between Red Bull and Ferrari than expected, I think Max is still going to be the number one out of everyone. And we know that obviously their main rivals, Ferrari, are in an absolute calamity and are an absolute mess right now. So Red Bull are absolute favourites for this weekend, and I think unless they have this weekend a similar Grand Prix to what they had last weekend at Silverstone, which was a disaster, really. I know Sergio Perez came through to still finish in second place, but really, if Ferrari got their act together, that really shouldn't have happened. Then, if it wasn't, for that, despite that, rather, Red Bull had a pretty bad British Grand Prix on race day. If Red Bull have that this weekend, that's the only way I see Red Bull not winning this Grand Prix. Even if a pit stop for Max Verstappen is 3 or 4 seconds too long, or he makes a slight error at the start of the race, I just think that eventually he will still come through to be leading the race and win the Grand Prix. It's going to take something quite monumental to happen, whether it be poor, reliability, poor luck, or, a massive driver mistake. It's going to take something, like I said, monumental for Red Bull to not win the Grand Prix this weekend. And if Verstappen does win, then, he should comfortably stretch out his championship lead over Charles Leclerc, who is, 43 points behind? Should comfortably stretch that out to over 50 points, because honestly, I would expect it to be a 1-2 for Red Bull this weekend. Sergio Perez has in the past been pretty competitive here. So, I think Red Bull will probably get, maybe not a 1-2 in qualifying, but definitely in the Grand Prix on the Sunday. I think Red Bull will get a 1-2 finish, and it'll be probably their most dominant Grand Prix of the season. Maybe the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, because that track will really suit them. Maybe that will be just as dominant, or maybe slightly more dominant for them in terms of the pace they have compared to everybody else. But considering Verstappen's performance also around this track, and with them having definitely the best car for the track, I just do not see realistically how Red Bull can be stopped, especially with their main rivals for victory this weekend most likely being the Ferrari team, a team that tried pretty hard to not win the British Grand Prix, yet somehow stumbled into winning the British Grand Prix. That's just how bad Ferrari are at the moment. Red Bull will be absolutely fine. If you are a Red Bull fan, then I don't think you need to be that stressed about this weekend, given what happened at Silverstone. And here are some stats to prove that Red Bull and Verstappen have a great record here. The Max Verstappen has won 4 out of the last 6 races in Austria in 2018, 2019, and the 2 Austrian races last year. He won the pair of them. Not just won both of them, but easily won the pair of them last year. So Verstappen winning this Grand Prix is pretty much a certainty unless something massively goes wrong. And also, in every race in Austria Max has finished, he has finished on the podium, except for 2015. Obviously, that year he was in the Toro Rosso. But in 2016, he finished the race and finished in second for Red Bull. And then 2018, 2019, he won. In one of the 2020 races that he finished, he was on the podium. And obviously last year, like I said, he won both Austrian races. So, yeah, I just don't see how you stop Max Verstappen this weekend. And the only way, as we saw at Silverstone, he was stopped is because of debris from an AlphaTauri car. If it wasn't for that, I think Verstappen would have won the race pretty comfortably because Ferrari were just quite embarrassing, to be honest, in the UK last weekend. And talking of Ferrari, let's now get on to them. And yes, they did win the last Grand Prix. Credit to Carlos Sainz for winning the British Grand Prix. But like I said, they tried pretty hard to lose the Grand Prix. Not obviously on purpose, but they made it so hard for themselves. That should have been, last weekend, a comfortable 1-2 for the team, with Leclerc winning and Sainz in second. But they ended up with a first and a fourth, and had Carlos Sainz not got past Charles Leclerc as quickly as he did on the safety car restart, they might not have even won the race, because that's a big reason why Carlos won the Grand Prix, is because he got past Leclerc, 2 or 3 corners after the restart of the race, after the safety car came in. If he took a lap or two to get past Leclerc, there's a big chance that Perez would have caught Sainz past him, and Perez would have won the British Grand Prix. So, yeah, like I said, they won the race, but it does feel like Ferrari had an absolute disaster class at Silverstone. Hopefully Sainz can continue his good form in the last couple race weekends into this weekend. We have seen him be very quick and competitive here in the past. So, hopefully he can, be quick this weekend and be doing the best job he can possibly do. I don't think he'll be as competitive as Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc, in all of the races he's done here in Austria, has been very, very strong. Obviously, started the race on pole position in 2019 and was only, I think, 2 or 3 laps away from victory before Max Verstappen took it away from him. So, yeah, Charles Leclerc should be pretty competitive this weekend. And even though Ferrari will definitely be lacking pace compared to Red Bull, Leclerc, I think, definitely in qualifying will be still close enough to give Red Bull something to work for in qualifying, and probably the sprint race as well. But like I said, Ferrari, they are going to be the second best team this weekend, even with their rear wing, which is less draggy and has cut a bit off, drag off. I think 5 kilometers an hour they are now quicker down the straights with their smaller rear wing that they've been running, I think, in the last 2 weekends. Even if they run that, yes, it will help, but I just don't see how it will help enough to really get a victory this weekend. And even when it comes to pole position, something Ferrari have been so good at getting this season, I don't think they'll get that even this weekend, because I just don't think the car is there. And definitely there is trouble in paradise, I guess you could say, at Ferrari. Obviously, Leclerc not very happy at all with what happened with his race. Obviously got a talking to from Binotto right after the Grand Prix. And yeah, definitely some bad feelings, I think, around the Ferrari team, and also within the Ferrari team we've been hearing on social media since the Grand Prix at Silverstone. So yeah, Ferrari not in a great state at the moment. I did, though, want to quickly read out something regarding Ferrari, because Matteo Binotto was asked, I think on the Ferrari website, they do like an analysis of what do you call it, of their race, and the team principal will explain, how certain things happened and all of that. I just wanted to read out Binotto's analysis from the British Grand Prix in terms of why did Ferrari pit Carlos Sainz and not pit Charles Leclerc? Let's get into that now. And I'll just quickly get up on screen. This question is from Ferrari. And then this is what Bonotto's answer is here, where it starts with, at this moment. So they ask, the safety car caused a lot of controversy. Why did we pick Carlos but not Charles? This is his response. Now, I have read this already. I have to just say this, though, before I read it out. I still don't actually quite know what he's talking about. It's actually nonsensical, what he talks about. He says, at this moment, it was common sense to prioritise the lead car by protecting track positions. There's nothing unusual in this strategy. We always prioritise the lead car, and therefore Charles in this situation. He was on fresher tyres at that point. If we had pitted, our opponents would have done the exact opposite and gained track position on almost new hard tyres. Just think of Lewis Hamilton at last year's season finale in Abu Dhabi when he stayed out on track. Am I wrong in saying that this is absolute, brain dead, what he's just said here? This sounds insane. Absolutely insane. When he says it's common sense to prioritise the lead car by protecting track position, yes, it is common sense to prioritise the lead car in protecting the track position. But in doing that, you would have to have pitted Charles Leclerc, because when that safety car came out, almost everybody was always going to pit for fresher and softer tyres. The reason is not because they all wanted to do the opposite to Ferrari. It's because they were like, fuck it, let's go on soft tyres and see what we get towards the end. That's why we see that plenty, actually, when a safety car comes out in the final 15 to 10 laps of a Grand Prix. People going onto the soft tyre is because they're like, screw it, let's just put the soft tyres on and see if we climb up a load of positions. That's why Perez did it, Hamilton did it, Norris, Alonso, almost everyone did it, I think, except for Leclerc, Vettel and Magnussen. Well, I think those three were the only ones who didn't pit. Now, Vettel and Magnussen, the reason they didn't pit is because if they did pit, they would have basically eliminated themselves of having a chance of finishing the points. So they thought, well, let's just leave our cars out there and, go for it. When with Charles Leclerc, even if Charles had lost a track position somehow, even though I don't think he would have by pitting, because Ferrari had a faster car than Mercedes and probably the Red Bull of Perez, he would have probably gained it back in that final 10 laps. So it makes absolutely no sense to protect Charles Leclerc by leaving him out on hard tyres. And also, yes, he was on fresher tyres, but if everyone else comes in and puts on soft tyres that are, brand spanking new, then that means Charles Leclerc's tyres are not fresh anymore. How is he this stupid? It's so mind-numbing how stupid Mattia is, or Mattia, whatever you want to call him. The clown, I'm sure is a great name for him. I just don't get this logic. I don't get it at all. He was on fresher tyres at that point. Yeah, but if everyone else goes and pits, then he's not on fresher tyres. As well, someone on Twitter made a great point that Ferrari actually did what we were all calling for them to do in 2018 when a safety car came out, towards the last 15 laps or so. They pitted both cars for fresher tyres, and actually with Vettel lost the lead to Bottas, who decided to stay out, but Vettel, with him being on fresher tyres, gained the lead back and won the race, meaning that him pitting was the correct thing to do. So Ferrari have done that strategy before and it has worked, and it was at this track. So why would you have not done that? That makes absolutely no sense. And then when he says, if he had pitted, our opponents would have done the exact opposite and gained track position on almost new hard tyres. let's say that would have happened, that Perez, Hamilton, Norris, Alonso stay out on hard tyres. Leclerc would then be on fresh, soft tyres. Leclerc probably would have ended up coming through to finish in at worst, second place. So it would have still been better than what they did. So again, what are you talking about, you absolute idiot? And then provides the example of, just think of Lewis Hamilton at, last year's season finale in Abu Dhabi when he stayed out on track. That's not an example to take inspiration from. Now, yes, the race should have ended and Lewis Hamilton should not have had to have lost position on that final lap. I think pretty much everybody agrees with that. But, what do you call it? Mercedes, in hindsight, and I even said it at the time, they should have pitted him to protect themselves from cars behind. And they obviously did not do that. You can't possibly, for the life of me, be taking inspiration from a strategy that lost Lewis Hamilton a Grand Prix. Yes, again, that final lap, technically speaking, absolutely should not have happened. But Lewis Hamilton staying out on hard tyres lost him the Grand Prix when they should have pitted him. So again, makes no sense whatsoever. And then says, at the same time, we decided to put Carlos on the opposite strategy in order to cover all opportunities. That's precisely the reasoning you would pit Leclerc, by the way, to cover off the cars behind that were inevitably going to do that. Again, just brain dead from Binotto. And then says, if we wouldn't have done that split strategy, we would have risked losing the race and handing the win to our opponents. No. Just no. No, and no. That is not correct. If they had pitted both cars, the worst thing that would have happened, because Perez was like 15 seconds behind, I think it was Sainz or Leclerc in fourth place, the worst thing that would have happened is that Hamilton, because Sainz would have had to have waited a tad bit more than he would have liked, the worst thing that would have happened is Hamilton would have jumped Sainz in the pits. Meaning that on the restart, it would have been first and third for Ferrari, but they would have both been on fresh, soft tyres. And given that the Ferrari was probably the quicker car still than the Mercedes in the Grand Prix, they probably would have ended up with a 1-2. But at worst, it probably would have been a 1-3 with both cars. Still, a better result than Ferrari got. I mean, I've said this before. Binotto is not qualified to be team principal. Again, this entire explanation makes absolutely no sense. To be honest, he's not even... I mean, if they're going to be asking this question, Ferrari, on their own website, they should be asking Inaki Rueda this, not Binotto, because Inaki Rueda, I'm pretty sure, is the one who made the decision. So... yeah, I don't even know what to say anymore. Ferrari, please fire this clown. And yeah, this is further proof, as we've talked about a million times, as to why Ferrari are not going to win a championship under Mattia Binotto's leadership. It's not going to happen. Because this is not just wrong, it's like... it's so wrong. It's... like I said earlier, brain dead. It is literally brain dead, what he said. Anyway, we'll move back onto these pictures. But let me know, guys, in the chat and the comments as well, what you thought of what Binotto's explanation there was. Because that is just, again, so stupid. When I saw that, I think it was on Monday afternoon, I was like, this can't be real. And then I made sure to look for myself. And yeah, that was absolutely real. And yeah, I can't even explain anymore what's going on with this team. But I'm sure they've got something mental on strategy cocked up. Well, they are going to cock up at some point. But they're going to have something on strategy, hopefully cooked up for us this weekend that will make us gasp in disbelief, which they do without really any effort to this team. Just, yeah, I just can't believe this Ferrari team anymore. Anyway, let's get on to some stats quickly in regards to Ferrari. So Charles Leclerc does have 2 podiums at the Austrian Grand Prix, 2019 and 2020. Both times finished in second place. The second place, by the way, in 2020 was very impressive because that Ferrari car, as we know, was absolute dog shit. Since Leclerc's last win in Australia, he has only had 1 podium in the 7 races since. It has been a terrible season for Leclerc since that victory at Melbourne. And also Ferrari have not got a good recent record here in Austria. The last win here in Austria was in 2003 with Michael Schumacher. Back in the early 2000s, they were dominating this event, but since the event came back on the calendar in 2014, Ferrari have not had really any luck whatsoever at this Grand Prix, and have performed definitely in a couple of the Austrian Grand Prix a bit poorly as well. So, yeah, Ferrari, I don't think are going to win this weekend. I just don't see how that is really going to happen. Also, I'll cut back to these pictures. I'm just reading out quickly an article on racefans.net that I think has come out recently in the last hour or so about how Leclerc said that Ferrari have made changes in response to Silverstone's safety car episode. Well, I severely doubt that. I think Ferrari will probably commit that mistake again because they are just committed to this road of insanity. But there was something else I wanted to read out that was actually in regards to Red Bull that I thought was a bit controversial. Let me try and find it quick. So here we go. So I'll cut back to Red Bull quickly. And funnily enough, goes on to a picture of Perez, because we had a very interesting comment from Helmut Marko, who said Perez is perfect teammate for Verstappen because he doesn't try to fight. Now, obviously, this has not gone down well in the F1 community, especially amongst the people that desperately want Perez to do well or beat Max Verstappen, which is unrealistic to say the least. Let's see what he actually had to say, though, because I'm going to have a feeling that, or I have a feeling, rather, that he didn't actually mean it quite like that. So he says, Max can drive any car fast. That's why having Perez as his teammate is perfect. Checo doesn't try to fight, but does everything he can, and that can lead to victory, as it did in Baku last season. The two work very well together. That's all he really says about it. So, yeah, I think this headline, I'm gonna have to be honest. I mean, it is a correct quote, because that's what he said. But I don't think he necessarily meant it like that. I think he means that with Perez, he's a good... I mean, let's be honest, guys. I know Perez is second in the championship, and we did, for a couple races, think that that he was in the championship fight. But Perez is a number 2 driver. I think most people, sensible people, would agree with that. So I think from that perspective, I think, Helmut is absolutely correct in what he's saying. Perez doesn't, try to fight too hard, does the best he can, is very consistent, and, that's what's led to his great results so far for Red Bull, and also so far this season. So I don't really see a problem with these comments, but I did see some people complaining about this online, so I thought I'd just quickly cover that. But let's now get on to Mercedes, who have definitely improved since the British Grand Prix. Obviously brought some big upgrades to the British Grand Prix regarding the floor area, and I think also the suspension as well. They are bringing, as well, Mercedes, some upgrades to this Grand Prix, and the upgrades, I don't think they've been exactly confirmed as to what they will be precisely, but they are said to work on and possibly permanently eliminate the bouncing on the Mercedes car, which would be fantastic for the Mercedes team, because that's been the main reason why Mercedes have been so slow this season. We saw at Silverstone, for example, that with the car bouncing a lot less on a much smoother track and with a layout with a lot faster corners, they were doing pretty well. That they were pretty competitive in dry conditions. Lewis Hamilton, for a good portion of the British Grand Prix, was faster than the two Ferraris. Now, that was helped quite a bit by Ferrari stupidly keeping Sainz ahead of Leclerc when Leclerc was clearly faster, and Leclerc eventually was let through by Sainz because Ferrari finally made that decision. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton showed some great pace in that Grand Prix, and I have no doubt that from now on, Mercedes, especially if they can fix that bouncing a bit more, maybe not totally, but make it so it's less of an issue. I have no doubt that Mercedes from now on to the end of the season are going to be closer to Red Bull and Ferrari. And given how at this track, with the shorter layout, obviously the cars are closer together in terms of lap time, I have no doubt Mercedes will be within half a second of, say, Red Bull this weekend. Probably not the second quickest team. I think that's probably a bit too much to expect from the Mercedes team. But I think they'll definitely be close to the back of Ferrari. I think they'll definitely be close to them. The only thing that will affect them is straight line speed isn't quite as good as Red Bull. Compared to Ferrari, it's close. Ferrari, I think, do have the better power unit in terms of raw power, but Ferrari do tend to run a bit more drag or have a draggier car than, say, the Mercedes Works team have. So it'll be close, but I think Mercedes will probably be lacking a slight bit too much straight line speed to be properly fighting with Ferrari. And also, turn 3 and turn 4, we have seen this season the Mercedes has been, certainly in the last few races, not that great in the slow corners. So they're not going to do great in those corners. And I would not be surprised at all if in the middle sector here at the Red Bull Ring, if Mercedes were losing quite a bit of speed compared to Red Bull and Ferrari in that sector in particular. But in the final sector and the first sector, they should be pretty quick. Maybe not, like I said, quick enough to be the second quickest team, but I think there's definitely a chance of a podium this weekend for Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton, we have seen in the last couple of weekends, has been great, and more so back to the Lewis Hamilton that we expect. But this weekend, I don't think we'll see what we saw from Hamilton last weekend at Silverstone. The reason being is because this track is not a great track for Lewis. He's not had, great history here. At the 2 races last year, for example, he wasn't massively quick, and has also been beaten by his teammate at the time in his absolute peak of his dominance. Valtteri Bottas was beaten a few times by Bottas at this track. So, like I said, it's not been that strong of a track for him. And George Russell has historically had some very good results here, not just for Williams. I mean, last year in one of the Austrian races, he was, I think, running in P10 until like the last 5 laps or something in the Williams that was pretty slow. So, yeah, Russell clearly proving how quick he is around this track. And also, if you look at his record here at the Red Bull Ring in F2 and F3, he was, I think, pretty dominant here compared to his very quick rivals at the time, especially in F2 in 2018, when obviously on that same grid you had, Lando Norris, Alex Albon, Latifi, and yeah, it was a pretty competitive F2 field, and Russell was pretty dominant here in Formula 2. So I would not be surprised whatsoever if George was ahead of Lewis Hamilton. In fact, I think he will be ahead of Lewis Hamilton this weekend because, like I said, Lewis isn't that great here at the Red Bull Ring, and Russell is pretty good here. But Mercedes overall, with both cars, yeah, they should be pretty competitive. And also, with the tyre compounds this weekend being the 3 softest compounds, the C5, C4, and C3, we saw with Mercedes at Silverstone that the way they were looking after their tyres was pretty good, and their tyre wear was at times non-existent compared to other teams. If we do get a dry race, especially a hot one, or, you know, the temperatures are high to a certain extent, that could really benefit Mercedes quite a bit on race day. We've seen their race pace has been great compared to their qualifying pace all season long, but given how they were looking after their tyres last weekend, look out for that, because, again, with these compounds being so soft for this weekend, it could allow Mercedes to possibly get a podium. And I think definitely a podium is possible this weekend for Mercedes. Do I think they will get one? I'm not sure. It's kind of a 50-50. It does depend a bit on, will Ferrari fuck up again? I will be honest with that. But yeah, I think definitely it is possible to a certain extent. And Lewis Hamilton did actually say something quite interesting coming from the British Grand Prix, that he definitely thinks that Mercedes will win a race in 2022. And I have to say, given they're bringing upgrades for this Grand Prix, and I think they're bringing another upgrade to the next Grand Prix at Paul Ricard in about a fortnight from now, if they do work for them and increase the pace of the car, I do think Mercedes will win a race this season. I don't think it'll be, you know, just Red Bull and Ferrari for the rest of the season. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think, given the drivers Mercedes have, and with their car improving as it is, I think they will win a race this season. Even if it's only one, I think they will get a race win. But let's get into some stats regarding the Mercedes team. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton has 2 race wins in Austria, but he's had plenty of, I'd say, good chances to win here in Austria, but not taken all of them. Mercedes have won 6 out of the 10 races in Austria since 2014, and Mercedes, for the first time since 2011, have won 0 out of the first 10 races. And also for Lewis Hamilton, for the first time for him since 2013, he has won 0 out of the first 10 races. In 2013, his only win that year was in the 11th race of the season. So if he does not win this weekend, it will be the longest run in a season that he has gone without victory, I think, ever in his entire F1 career. Because I think even in 2009, he won, I think his first win in Hungary was race 10 of the season. So yeah, if he doesn't win this weekend, it'll be the longest run into a season he's gone without winning a Grand Prix. And obviously, if he doesn't win a Grand Prix this season, that'll be the first season in his career that he's not won a Grand Prix, which would be quite an amazing thing, considering how just usual and expected it is that not only Lewis Hamilton will win races in a season, but win, you know, between 5 and 10 at the very least per season. So yeah, absolutely mental what's happened in 2022. And now we will go on to McLaren, and then I'll come to you guys in a moment in the chat. So keep your comments coming. I can see them coming at the moment. Like I said, keep them coming in chat, and I'll make sure to get to them once I've just gone through McLaren. And yeah, McLaren got a decent result at Silverstone last weekend, but it wasn't quite as good as it could have been. It should have been really 5th place, considering Norris was comfortably ahead of Fernando Alonso in the Grand Prix up until the safety car period, where for some reason McLaren did not pit Lando as soon as possible when they absolutely had the chance to get him in the pits. I still don't know what they were doing there with Lando Norris, and it ended up being P6. And like I said, even though it was still a decent result for them, you know, a top 6 at Silverstone, something they didn't expect, they still lost points to their main rival in the constructors, being Alpine. So, yeah, not a great result for McLaren, and certainly not as good as it should have been. But coming to this weekend's Grand Prix, yeah, McLaren are going to struggle this weekend. This track does not suit them really in any way, shape or form. I just don't see how they're going to get really that many points out of this Grand Prix. I will get onto a stat though in a minute that might be a slight bit of hope for McLaren fans out there, but like I said, with the lack of straight line speed they have, and it is probably the worst on the grid, their car is very draggy, and with also a lot of the corners here being high speed, which I don't think they do that well in, McLaren. I think they're the type of corners they do well in, I think, are slow speed and medium speed corners. The McLaren car does take a lot after the Ferrari car. It's kind of a worse version of the Ferrari car. It doesn't have the straight line speed, but it does have good cornering performance in medium and slow speed corners, does this McLaren car. But yeah, I would be surprised if McLaren were getting anywhere higher than 8th place in the Grand Prix. I'd be very, very surprised by that, because Alpine, they're going to be pretty quick this weekend with both cars. They've been very quick in the last few races, let's be honest. Aston Martin, I think, will definitely be stronger this weekend than what we saw at Silverstone, especially in qualifying. AlphaTauri, I think they'll definitely be a lot better this weekend than they were at Silverstone. Alfa Romeo, to a certain extent. So it's going to be a tough weekend for McLaren. It might be similar to what it was like in Baku for them, but the race might not go as well for them as it did in Baku. Obviously, retirements in Baku did help with them getting the, I think, 6 points that they got out of that Grand Prix. So, yeah, McLaren going to struggle quite a bit this weekend. But like I said, there is a stat regarding McLaren that might give McLaren fans out there some hope. And that it's Lando Norris, in every F1 race he's competed in since 2019, has finished in the top 6 of all of those races. And has had 2 podiums here in Austria, one in 2020 and one in 2021. And yeah, was 6th in 2019. In the 2 races in 2020, he was 3rd and 5th, and then he was 5th and 3rd in 2021. So at least Lando does have a pretty good record here. So that might save McLaren's bacon here in terms of grabbing a couple points this weekend. And obviously, we have heard that it could rain on Sunday. And if McLaren somehow, in the fight for victory, do remember that McLaren's last win in Austria was in 2001 with David Coulthard. That was, 21 years ago. Yeah, with Lando's record here at Austria, I think that could definitely be the only way that McLaren get a positive result out of the weekend. But it's going to be pretty tough for McLaren. But I'll move back on to pictures probably of the Red Bull team, and I'll now come to you guys in the chat. So guys, let me know for the top 4 teams and drivers, how do you think they will do this weekend in Austria? Let me know in the live chat, and I'll make sure to read out as many comments as I can. Just want to remind you guys, I will be live tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. UK time. Obviously, this weekend we have the sprint race, so the normal qualifying session takes place on Friday. So I'll be live tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. UK time, half an hour before that qualifying session begins for the qualifying watch along. So make sure to join me for that. And as well, obviously, we're doing the long continuous streams on Saturday and Sunday. I'll be live from 12:30 all the way through till 4:30 p.m. on Saturday. Obviously, from 12:30 till 3 p.m. I'll be live with the sprint race preview. Then from 3 till 4 p.m. UK time will be the sprint race watch along. And then for the half an hour after that, it'll be the reaction to the sprint race. And then on race day, I'm going to be live from 12 p.m. UK time all the way through till about 5:30 p.m. UK time. 12 till about 1:30 will be the race preview, and then 1:30 till about 4 o'clock p.m. UK time will be the race watch along part of the day, and then from 4 p.m. till 5:30 p.m. UK time will be the race reaction. So that is what's coming your way, guys, this weekend on the channel. So make sure to stick around for that later this weekend. And like I said, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for that content coming up. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. For everyone watching, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. But I'll now get to the comments and see what you guys have to say. Sparky Pete, by the way, hello to everyone in chat, says, I wish every race had a sprint. Much more attention would that bring to F1. More chances to get stuff mixed up, as in some luck maybe for a small team. No, I completely disagree. I don't think the sprint is really that good at all. We saw at the first sprint of this year in Imola, it didn't really mix the field up for the Sunday grid. We actually had a mixed up grid in Friday qualifying there at Imola, but then the sprint race just put it back into what it, the usual order that it would be. So actually ended up making for a worse grid than what we would have actually got. So no, I don't think it was great there in mixing things up. And also, last year at Silverstone, we remember we had the sprint race, and it didn't really add anything, I don't think, to the Grand Prix on the Sunday. And I've got to say, I don't think it was missed at all, the sprint race, the British Grand Prix last weekend. I don't think anybody really cared. Plus, I think there was more people there the British Grand Prix last weekend than there was last year. So, yeah, I don't think the sprint race really adds anything. Just mixing the grid up for mixing up's sake, I think, really. That's all that does. Josiah says, greetings, ready for the most boring and predictable race of the season. Just wake me up when Max wins. Yeah, unfortunately, it could be that way. Aline says, who are these people working on the strategy at Ferrari? Well, Anaki Rueda is the head of strategy. I think actually since 2019 he's had a promotion, which I don't understand how that has happened. He must have done some mean under the table work, to get that job, to be honest. But yeah, I don't get how that is. How what happened in Silverstone was possible. I just don't still understand. Josiah says, why did he refer the situation to what Hamilton did when this was exactly the same thing as that? Bonotto's and insert expletive here, mug. If you know what I mean, absolutely. John says, what would Leclerc do if Ferrari fucks up strategy yet again? What Leclerc could do, though, next time is he could do what Vettel started doing at the end of his Ferrari career, which is just doing his own strategy for himself, which would probably end up with him getting, at times, a better result than, he would get if he relied on his team. But the problem is, the driver obviously doesn't have access to the driver tracker, lap times, all of that. So the driver, someone who is unqualified in calling the shots on when they should pit and when the best time is to pit, would actually not end up being that much better, honestly. And I think it's a sad state of affairs, but it shows you how bad things have got at Ferrari, that their strategy is that bad that the drivers are now having to call the shots to a certain extent because they just don't trust their own team. Let's find some of the comments here. Sparky Pete says his explanation shows he lives in a self-reassuring bubble. Yeah, I mean, you've got to be incredibly high to believe what Bonotto said to be actually the correct thing in terms of what Ferrari did. You've got to be incredibly high. I still can't believe that was his explanation. I can't believe it. But at this point, it is Ferrari. Who knows what they're going to do next? Are we going to talk about how them and Ferrari have been cheating? To be honest, at the moment, probably not. But I am probably going to do a video about that. The Red Bull and Ferrari situation. I am probably going to do a video about that in the next 2-week break in between races, which is, thankfully, after this Grand Prix this weekend, I'm probably going to do a video getting into all of that and explaining, what's happened and what effects it's going to have for the French Grand Prix, obviously, because that's when I think this ban comes in for their flexible floors and that. So I will talk about it eventually, but just not yet, because I'm yet to do my proper research for that video. Outdated says, never liked Marco, sounds like a bit of a dumbass and a snark. I think the reason, I understand why some people don't like him, but I think with Helmut it's just very honest and straightforward, which is, I have to say, something that I like in people is honesty and just being straightforward. I mean, even though he's honest, yeah, he can sometimes be wrong in some of the things he says, obviously, but I'd rather him just say how he feels than not. Dre says Mercedes were lapping faster than Ferrari and Red Bull. They were, or Hamilton was, yes, but again, the circumstances as to why he was need to be remembered. The reason Lewis Hamilton was lapping quicker is because Charles Leclerc was held up behind Carlos Sainz for a long time. And Carlos Sainz was clearly, before that safety car period, was very slow and a lot slower compared to Lewis Hamilton. And that's what allowed Hamilton and Mercedes to actually have a chance at one point of possibly winning the Grand Prix. So, I mean, yes, in actual fact, they were quicker, but I don't think in clean air, them compared to Ferrari, they were actually quicker, because we saw once Charles Leclerc, and I pointed this out, by the way, in my video on Ferrari and the British Grand Prix, which, by the way, you can check out in the description. I pointed out that once Leclerc was set free and was released into the lead, that even though Hamilton was on fresher tyres after his first pit stop, Leclerc was lapping only slightly slower than Lewis Hamilton, even though he shouldn't have been lapping slightly slower. He should have been a lot slower. So, yeah, in actual fact, I don't think Mercedes were the quickest at Silverstone in terms of race pace, but they were a lot closer than they have been, without a doubt. Let's see if we can find some other comments here. Sparky Pete says, with attention paid to the floor stiffness in France, Red Bull and Ferrari will lose performance. Whole Mercedes getting faster. Got to follow the rules. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't as dramatic a pace loss as people are making it out that it's going to be. I don't think, that Mercedes are going to suddenly have the best car just like that. Even though it would make things pretty exciting if that was the case. I don't think that's just going to automatically happen. But it could, but I don't think we should, expect such a situation. Aline says, I miss Arriva Bene. Well, he was a short bit better than Bonotto, was Arriva Bene. And I'd say he's probably the best team boss that Ferrari have had since Jean Todt. And Arriva Bene still had his issues, so shows you how bad it's been at the team. And also, Aline asks, do you all think Binotto should be fired? The problem is, this is how stupid Ferrari are. Because in reality, Binotto, his best role, what he's best at, is the technical side of the cars. What he was best at was being technical director of the Ferrari team and of the Ferrari car. But now he's done what he's done as Ferrari team boss. If they were to replace him, I don't see how they could just put him as technical director. They would have to get rid of him because it would quite possibly undermine the new team boss. And that's how bad and stupid Ferrari are, is now they're going to lose Binotto, who on the technical side is pretty good. Not great. Not, as good as Adrian Newey, James Allison. He's not that level, I don't think, is Binotto. But he's definitely someone you'd want to keep around on the technical side. Because they would probably have to get rid of him entirely, they then lose, that technical knowledge. When what should have happened is Binotto should have been kept as technical director. And if you're going to replace Arriva Bene, fine. But don't replace him with a guy unqualified. That was the whole problem I had with Binotto replacing Maurizio Arriva Bene, was that he was unqualified and that he was not going to be suited to the role. The reason he was promoted to the role is because he was a favourite with the higher ups, and was kind of a golden boy at Ferrari, was Matteo Binotto. So yeah, that's why he got promoted. I mean, yeah, looking back now, I mean, if he was say fired right now, I don't think there'd be that much to look back on and praise him about. I mean, yeah, the car did improve from what it was like in 2020 or 2021, and they have come, quite a bit since then. But we have to remember that Binotto was one of the sole people responsible for why Ferrari was so bad in 2020, because they had an illegal engine that obviously was banned for 2020, and that's why they were so slow, because they had to go back to the drawing board as to what they were going to do to get the power out of their power unit. And obviously he signed off on that, absolutely no doubt about it, and there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Binotto would have known that the Ferrari power unit was not legal. There's no doubt about that, and he would have absolutely known about what it does and how it gets the power it did back in 2019. So I think you'd have to say he's maybe not the most responsible, because I don't think he actually designed it, but he probably, was involved in the development of it to a certain extent. And, with that being banned, rightfully so, by the FIA, that's what led to Ferrari being so bad in 2020 and 2021. And even though Ferrari have come a long way since then, all they've done, Ferrari, since 2019 is they've gone round in a complete circle back to where they were in 2019. In 2019, they were the second quickest team for the majority of that season, and in a similar way to this season, they had plenty of races that year where they should have won, had great potential, yet blew race after race after race after race, and made Mercedes that year look a lot quicker than they actually were, even though, yes, Ferrari did have, in hindsight, an illegal power unit design. Ferrari were definitely a lot quicker in context than it looked, given the results Mercedes got, especially in the first 8 races that season. And they really helped Mercedes have a pretty comfortable 2019 season. That's exactly what Ferrari are doing now in 2022. Red Bull, they've got a good car, Red Bull, and they're a very good team. But Ferrari are making Red Bull look a lot better than they actually are. They're making Red Bull look as though they are like they were back in 2011, or the Mercedes team in 2020, or 2014, 15, 16. They're making Red Bull look like a dominant team when Red Bull, yeah, they are a better team than Ferrari. They've got probably overall just about the better car than Ferrari, but they're not, they're not miles ahead when it comes to the pace of the car. But they've made them look so good this season. So all Binotto has done in reality is take Ferrari back to where they were when he became team boss. Because I did see apparently WTF1 said that Ferrari should not sack Binotto because look how far they've come since 2020, which is a completely stupid argument because he was responsible, or one of the people responsible, for why they were so bad in 2020. So, yeah. He should be fired. Will he be fired? Probably not. I honestly don't see when. I don't see when he will be fired, to be honest. I could see Binotto being team boss at Ferrari for another 5 years easily. The reason is because, again, he's kind of their golden boy at Ferrari because he's quite young for a team boss, and he's been with the team for, 20 years or so. He's Italian, which obviously does help. And I think there's a lot of people within that Ferrari team and Ferrari bubble that definitely think a lot higher of Binotto than he deserves to be thought of. I mean, he's a good person. I don't think there's anything about him as a person that you could say anything negative about. But in terms of his actual performance in his job, he is not qualified at all for what he's doing. He is completely out of his depth. And like I said 3 years ago, and I'll say it again because I know I'll be proven right, and I'll keep saying it until he finally is no longer team boss. Ferrari will never win a championship as long as Matteo Binotto is team principal. It will never happen. So if you're a Ferrari fan and you want to win a championship, then you better get those petitions going, because you ain't winning shit for years if he is your team boss. Anyway, let's get into the rest of the teams, and we'll go to Alpine. And yeah, pretty good result for them. Annoyingly, though, for Alpine, it should have been better, because Esteban Ocon in the Alpine was probably heading for a 7th or an 8th place finish. And even though before that safety car, Alonso was behind Norris, they would have still outscored McLaren had Esteban finished the Grand Prix, and probably would have outscored McLaren by a couple more points than they actually did in the end. So a bit annoying there for Alpine, but they still factually closed the gap to McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. And going into this weekend, they'll definitely be faster than McLaren. Their car definitely will suit this track better than it will, the McLaren will. It will definitely suit their car better than it will McLaren. That's what I'm trying to say, if I can speak English again. Don't know why I'm struggling so much tonight to do that. And yeah, obviously both drivers are pretty good here. Fernando Alonso did pretty well here last year in, I think, both races in Austria. And also Esteban Ocon does have a decent record here at the Red Bull Ring as well. I think Esteban is finishing the points here in at least half of the races he's done here, I think. I know for Force India, he did finish in the points both times. So, yeah, he's got a decent record here as Esteban. But Alpine overall should be fine. And as long as they outscore McLaren, then that is a good enough result for them. And if McLaren do have a poor result, which is possible, and Alpine, and especially Alonso, can get a few more points than they would expect, then quite possibly this weekend, or the end of this weekend, Alpine will overtake McLaren in the championship and quite possibly not surrender 4th place again for the rest of the season, which I think is very possible in 2022. Now we'll move on to Alfa Romeo. Obviously not a good day at Silverstone. Valtteri Bottas retiring with a technical issue, and Zhou Guanyu, as we saw at the start of that Grand Prix, having an absolutely horrific crash, and luckily surviving a crash that he probably would not have survived 15 to 20 years ago. So yeah, great to see that he is all okay, and he will be racing this weekend. But it's a shame for Alfa Romeo because they had pretty good pace in the British Grand Prix. I mean, Bottas, I think, was comfortably in the top 10. I think, was he 8th or 9th until his retirement? He was in the top 10, I'm pretty sure he was, in the Alfa Romeo. And obviously, in qualifying, they were pretty decent as well. So, yeah, it's a shame for Alfa Romeo because they've been kind of left behind again in 6th place in the championship. But there's no reason why this weekend they can't, get back after the 2 teams ahead of them. Valtteri Bottas, we know, has a great record here at the Red Bull ring. Valtteri Bottas has won here in Austria, I think, twice in his career, in 2017 and 2020, and has, I think, as well, 3 pole positions here at the Red Bull ring as well. So look out for Valtteri Bottas. He could definitely be a surprise contender in the top 10. And hopefully Zhou Guanyu can be as well. Reminder that Zhou has outqualified Bottas in the last 3 Grand Prix. So he's having a great season so far. Well, not a great season, but, his last few races have been pretty good. And hopefully that crash will not stop this good run of form that he is in. But they should be in the fight for points this weekend. They're going to be around probably McLaren, Aston Martin, and AlphaTauri, I would say, will the Alfa Romeo team. So hopefully they have a good weekend. Next up is Haas F1. Obviously, what a weekend they had at Silverstone. Despite a poor qualifying, they finished 8th and 10th with both cars. And Mick Schumacher got his first points finish in Formula 1. A brilliant result and brilliant drive from him. And hopefully he will build on that in this Grand Prix this weekend. He should do, to be honest, because he has had good history here at the Red Bull ring. I think he won here in Euro F3. And I think he may have taken a victory here in F2 as well. So he does have a good bit of history here, so there's no reason why he can't be very quick here. Kevin Magnussen, though, his teammate, is going to be also, though, very, very competitive because K-Mag has been very quick here in the past. In 2019, he qualified 5th here. In 2018, I think he finished in the top 10 quite strong. I think 5th in the race in that weekend. And I think in his first year at McLaren, he finished in the top 7 or top 6, did Magnussen. So definitely look out for both Haas drivers this weekend. They may be right up in the top 10. It could happen. Because like I said, both drivers got good history here. And the Haas car, it's weird with this car because obviously it's not been developed really that well at all. They haven't had any development go onto the car now for 2.5 months. So you would think the car would not be that quick, but it's still, in certain weekends, pretty quick. It doesn't really, at times, with this team make any sense. But, yeah, we'll see what they do this weekend and see whether they've got the car to go along with the pace of the drivers. Now on to AlphaTauri. And very bad race at Silverstone. Obviously, they were running in 7th and 8th, and then Yuki Tsunoda took out Pierre Gasly at turn 3 and cost them, and now Yuki Tsunoda cost the team what would have been probably a double points finish for the AlphaTauri team. So, yeah, very disappointing there for the team, considering as well that at Silverstone they were pretty slow in the dry in the lead up to the Grand Prix on the Sunday, and we're in a great position to get way more points than what was expected. They were expected to get nothing, I think, going into that weekend. But like I said, we're in a great position, but Tsunoda robbed the team of that. But I do think a chance for revenge is possible this weekend. The AlphaTauri should be a lot quicker this weekend. This track definitely suits their car better. This track is similar in a way to Baku, in that you do have 2 or 3 slow corners after, big stops after a long straight. And we saw, obviously, in Baku where we have that, AlphaTauri were pretty competitive and should have really got a 5th and 6th in that Grand Prix in Baku. So look out for AlphaTauri, and especially look out for Pierre Gasly, who we know is very quick at the Red Bull Ring. Last year, he qualified, was it 5th? I think he qualified in one of the races here in Austria, Gasly, and I think he finished in the top 6 in one of the races as well. Yeah, look out for Gasly especially. I would not be surprised at all if Pierre was right up there in the top 10. And final couple teams, Aston Martin. Good result for Sebastian Vettel at Silverstone, a P9. If it doesn't rain really at all this weekend, then I think you'll see them definitely be a lot quicker, certainly in qualifying, than what we saw at Silverstone. I just don't think this car handles that well in the wet. And both drivers have a decent record here at Austria. Sebastian Vettel doesn't have a great record here, but it is still decent enough and has quite a few good finishes considering the cars he was driving at certain Austrian Grand Prix. So I think Vettel will be fine. Lance Stroll, though, we know is pretty competitive here. I think in one of the races last year here in Austria, he finished in 8th place and finished in the points here in 2017, I believe. And 2020, I think he had a pretty good... I think the second race in Austria in 2020, he was it 7th or 6th, I think it was, for Stroll. So Aston Martin will definitely be in that fight. It's going to be a very close fight between McLaren, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, and Aston Martin. Will Aston Martin win that battle? It's going to be tough, but they'll definitely be very competitive in that battle. And finally, we'll go on to the Williams team, and wasn't as good of a race as it could have been. Nicholas Latifi, I've got to say, did an amazing job. For a long time was running in the points, and at one point he was only a second behind Max Verstappen, about to overtake him for 8th place, and then his pace fell off quite a bit. Ended up, I think, finishing in P12. But yeah, Williams had a pretty good weekend. Obviously, Alex Albon didn't have a great weekend, obviously, with his massive crash on the Sunday, and he had the upgraded car, but didn't really make much use of it. So yeah, not great on his side, but for Latifi's side, pretty good. Hopefully Latifi can keep that up this weekend and continue to show this just incredible pace that nobody has seen before. And for Albon, let's hope that we can really start to see the upgraded Williams start to work its magic. That would be nice if we saw that this weekend here at the Red Bull Ring. But hopefully for them, there is a bit of chaos so they can score maybe a couple of points. And we'll go back to the top teams as I quickly come to you guys in the chat to see what you guys have to say. Sparky Pete says, Bonotto knew they were overachieving when he kept saying, let's see where we are at race 5. He knew reliability was crap, but you can make engine changes for reliability, so maybe a good long-term move. Well, I remember at the start of the season, Bonotto saying that, what do you call it? That, what was it he said? He said, because I think someone asked him, "Oh, do you expect to fight for the championship this year?" Because after the first 2 or 3 days of testing, everybody knew that Ferrari had a front row car. They had a front running car. Did Ferrari after the first 2 or 3 days of testing, and was asked, is the championship the aim this season? And Bonotto said no, which tells you everything you need to know at Ferrari. They're not even setting that target anymore. And yeah, if you set that target, I do get that it can put a lot of pressure on a team. I understand that. But at the end of the day, you're Ferrari. That pressure comes with being Ferrari no matter where Ferrari are. Ferrari are expected to compete for the championship every year. And in my view, Ferrari, at least, should be fighting for a championship every season. They don't have to be winning it every season, but at least fighting for one. That should be the aim every year. And they don't have an excuse. They have plenty of money, plenty of resources, and will always have access, if they want it, to the best talent in the world when it comes to designers, engineers, team bosses, drivers. They will always have lots of access to that quality. So for them to not come into a season and to be saying that is terrible, absolutely terrible. It shows you, like I said, that the standards have been lowered quite a bit at Ferrari. That's a big reason why Ferrari have got into their position, unfortunately. Right, I'll read out probably a couple more comments and then we'll get on to the end of this stream, I think. For everyone or anyone who's just joined, make sure to just watch this stream back if you want to catch what I said earlier. Gunship01 says, is it true that Red Bull have been caught cheating by the FIA? I guess so. I guess you could say that, but also Ferrari as well, so it's not just Red Bull. McLaren F1 racers can't help but think the Merc will be bouncing up and down the hill again. Or bouncing up the hill to turn 3 or 2 hairpin. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they were struggling with that into the braking zone. But guys, that is it for your Austrian Grand Prix preview. Thank you guys for coming along to this stream. Like I said, if you didn't catch all of it, then make sure to watch it back once it finishes in a moment. And yeah, thank you to everybody who has come along for the stream, and I'll remind you guys as to what I'm doing for the rest of the weekend. So tomorrow I will be live at 3:30 p.m. UK time for the qualifying watch along for the Austrian Grand Prix. Then on Saturday I'll be live from 12:30 all the way through till 4:30. First at 12:30 till 3 p.m. UK time I'll be doing the sprint race preview. Then from 3 till 4 p.m. will be the sprint race watch along, and then from 4 till 4:30 p.m. will be the sprint race reaction. Then on Sunday, I'll be live from 12 p.m. all the way through till 5:30 p.m. Again, UK time that is. From 12 till 1:30 p.m. I'll be live for the race preview. And then live from 1:30 till 4 p.m. I think with Nib for the race watch along. And then from 4 till 5:30 p.m. UK time for the race reaction. So don't forget, guys, to come along to all of that this weekend. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for all of that content coming up. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. And for everyone watching, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can to help the channel grow. And don't forget to, as well, follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 and join my Discord server, link below in the description. And as well, if you didn't check out my last video that I uploaded on Friday about how Ferrari ruined Charles Leclerc's British Grand Prix, there is a link below in the description. Make sure to go and watch that after this stream finishes. But guys, until my qualifying watch along tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. UK time, it has been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.